There may be a lot of activity going on with your initiative, but it only counts if you're making progress against your roadmap. The roadmap is the path that the organization needs to take to move from the status quo to the desired future state. Reliable metrics are the only way to provide a tangible and consistent view of progress. But instead of overanalyzing dozens of metrics, which is easy to do, the key is to zero in on what the change was all about and focus on how it's impacting the customer and organization. At GE, Jack had an expectation that progress could never be driven just by an opinion, but had to be based on reputable data. This data is key in determining whether the change is moving the needle in the right direction. To design an effective measurement system, we need to look at the organization's current state, the future state we described in previous sections, and the roadmap we set in place to move the organization from one state to the other. In every journey, there are ways of tracking where you are and how far you've come. When you take a trip, things like mile markers, maps, or your GPS system can help measure how far you've gone and how close you are to your destination. Being able to measure your current performance allows you to celebrate accomplishment and keep the organization focused on what's next. Let's look at what makes a good measurement system. First, it's fact-based. Good measurements aren't based on biased criteria, and the data needs to be reliable. You need to include all data points, both the positive and the negative, whether it's financial information, staffing changes, or on-time deliveries. Also, the way the measurement is taken should be consistent throughout the project and after the change is in place. Ensure that you always capture the starting point and set a clear target to define success. As an example, projects are often measured in financial metrics such as revenue, spend, or profit. But don't stop with financial measures alone. Be sure to identify the key operational measures that are directly tied to the goals for the change process. It's easy to understand. Everyone involved in the change process should be able to track whether the initiative is making a difference. As an example, many companies use numbers-based customer satisfaction surveys or percentage on time deliveries to measure their baseline and set specific targets. It matters. Measure what matters to your customers and your organization. How does the change impact your customer, your productivity, your organization's compliance to a policy, or whatever it is that matters most with the change that you've made? Show why your measurement matters and how improving that metric ultimately improves the organization's performance. For example, measure both the number of on-time and late deliveries as well as customer retention when the data shows that customers are lost when products are delivered late. Those are measurements that matter. It provides specific examples. Highlight your early victories and show how things are better as the changes are implemented. Use a baseline from where you started to show if you're making measurable progress. If it makes sense and the data is publicly available, also include a comparison to your competitors. This drives a competitive spirit and keeps the organization on the positive track. It holds people accountable. Make sure that each of your metrics have owners, especially for internal metrics that are key to success. Visible metrics are a great way to drive accountability and performance. When a leader's name is associated with a metric, they'll typically work harder to stay ahead of the pack, or at least to avoid being on the bottom of the chart. Many major organizations use progress reports that include traffic light symbols to quickly provide a visual indicator for the state of each of the businesses. This list is shared with a broad internal audience, and the visibility helps drive change forward. To identify the best metrics, look back at the problem statement that you and your team originally put together for your change initiative. Your key metrics should show progress against the problems that were identified in the statement. For example, if your end goal is to improve the customer experience, then make sure that you have metrics and feedback around the satisfaction for your customers regarding their experience. After all, if you don't measure it, how will you know if you're succeeding? Measurements need to be as visible and as simple as possible. Don't hide them away in your office or in a conference room. Keep the measurements out in a public place, like on bulletin boards or on screensavers, where everyone can monitor the progress. Think about the fundraiser thermometers you see for local charities at a busy intersection. It's a great way to communicate how much has been accomplished and what's left to do. One of the most effective ways to summarize progress and provide a snapshot that can be easily interpreted by an executive audience is the dashboard. On a single page or screen, the initiative owner summarizes the key metrics and accomplishments to date, as well as any risks, missed deadlines, or other issues that need to be addressed. This is a powerful communication tool and a great way to stay focused on vital metrics and progress. Measuring progress also gives you an opportunity to celebrate successes and intermediate milestones. Keep the target as a key focus for the organization, but make sure to give credit for progress. For example, open meetings with comments about the measurements. Talk about them and share them with your team. As Jack mentioned, give rewards where deserved. This is one of the best ways to keep the excitement and energy around your initiative. Let's also look at how change projects can stall. Here are some key pitfalls to avoid. Running out of steam. Too many initiatives for one organization. Internal distractions. Losing sight of the goal. Organizational changes. And external forces. It's easy for projects to run out of steam. Maybe associates are burned out because they're being asked to accomplish too much. If you see this happening, go back to the roadmap. Are you asking the team to run a marathon but insisting they do it at a sprinter's pace? Is it time to bring in more help or supplement your resources? Are you losing steam because the efforts to energize people have stalled? Or are your communications not reaching your intended audience? Change projects can also be sidetracked when an organization is undertaking too many initiatives at once. It's unrealistic to ask associates to add too many special projects to their plate along with doing their normal job. You can also face the challenge of your initiative competing for resources with another project. Which one becomes the top priority? Your project can also be consumed or swept up into other distractions. For example, has your project been unintentionally linked to another change process? Some initiatives will support your vision, but others may cause confusion with or dilution of your initiative. For example, imagine major layoffs coming in parallel with your effort to streamline a process for a faster customer response. Though your goals had nothing to do with layoffs, the unfortunate timing may leave your stakeholders wondering if eliminating jobs was really the plan all along. Projects can also suffer when people lose sight of the goal. You can get so buried in the details of the initiative or your daily work that you lose focus on what you're trying to accomplish. It's easy for people to be sucked back into their daily tasks and fail to give the project the attention it requires. Priorities need to be well-defined, and tying incentives to the desired outcomes have a way of clarifying those priorities. Remember to celebrate milestones and the progress made in order to keep people focused. Over time, any organization evolves. Team members will move on to other assignments, promotions, or departures. As a result, you'll need to bring new associates up to speed with training or coaching around the initiative. It's up to you and your champions to navigate through these changes and resume the roadmap as soon as possible. Changes in the external environment can also have an effect on progress for your initiative. Examples could include a change in regulations or a major shift in the competitive landscape. External changes might require your team to rethink or alter its future vision for the initiative. Any shift in the future vision for your initiative will require modifying the roadmap that will get you there. This is most important for large initiatives that will take a year or more to complete. Measurements don't stop with the initiative itself. It's also important that you measure how effective your communication process is. Useful metrics include the number of times a message has reached its audience, surveys regarding the level of buy-in, and overall support for the message. By measuring the impact or hit rate of your communications, you can modify your messaging strategy to increase the effectiveness and reach of your communication. Keep reinforcing your vision for the future and the desired behaviors that will make a difference. As Jack mentioned earlier, celebrate the interim successes along the roadmap. Make people understand it's worth their effort. Reward those who drive progress in the right direction. Don't forget to use your metrics to show tangible ways the initiative is making a difference to customers and the organization. If pace is slowing down or a milestone is missed, don't ignore it. If it's visible to you, it's probably visible to many others as well. Openly address the issue. Come up with a mitigation plan and share it. Be candid and be balanced. If you are celebrating successes, you also need to acknowledge when performance is not on par and take action to resume the journey. In the next section, we will look at how to put in place solutions to reinforce the new behaviors and prevent people from falling back to old habits.